for joining us. My name is Sheyna Weisenburger, and with me today I have Amy Pravatsky. Very lucky to have her time today, as you'll learn in our discussions moving forward. This is probably one of the busiest times for employee benefits solutions, shopping, both in the large group capacity as well as the small group capacity. 2023 rates have just been announced, approved by the North Dakota Insurance Department. So people in our industry, whether you're looking to be an HR professional or an entrepreneur, or you own a small business, this is the time people start looking at benefits. This is the time when people are getting their rate increase notifications if they have benefits in play. This is kind of go time. We call it fourth quarter grind. So thank you, Amy, so much for taking time out of your busy day. I was very specific and purposeful in asking Amy to be here today. She is in charge here at Stroh and Associates of all of our small group, mid group, both marketing, sales, as well as all of the renewal and customer service side of the house. So she runs that team of operations for us. So much more knowledgeable than myself in that space. I try to stay into large group data analysis, compliance. We'll touch a little bit on that. I know we have some potential HR professionals. A little bit about myself and Stroh and Associates. Stroh and Associates was founded here in Bismarck, North Dakota in 2012. So we've been in business for a little over 10 years. I have held various positions in the HR and finance capacity, everything from being a financial advisor to being the vice president of human resources at the University of Mary, to also being an account executive in Western North Dakota with the oil boom, primarily doing the placement, underwriting, analytics, full service scale model for about 3 years prior to starting Stroh and Associates. We're a very purpose-driven organization. I started the company essentially in 2012 when working for Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we were transitioning from a very monopolistic environment of Blue Cross having almost 96% of the market share to a transition where we were going to have other carriers such as Medica United Healthcare, Sanford Health Plan, Health Partners. We've really expanded even to the Cigna and Aetna platform. So we have lots of options in North Dakota, and that always hadn't been the case. And so at the time I was servicing a little over 500 accounts, and people started asking questions because they were hearing of brokers coming in from other states. And it was kind of a very, like I said, a very purpose-driven decision for me to leave the safety net of corporate America, become an entrepreneur, hire a longtime friend that I knew and trusted, who would do a good job in taking on this adventure and partnership. And we've been exceptionally successful in the space of assisting not only young entrepreneurs starting a new business, older entrepreneurs starting a business, small businesses looking at implementing benefits, mid-sized groups, as well as we do compete with the big dogs. We have several clients in the large group space, and we have been offering for about 7 years all of the same types of services, which we'll go into a little further detail, that you would get from a Minneapolis, New York style firm. So compliance, HR assistant, back room, pretty much the list goes on. So without further ado, I do want to introduce Amy and let her tell you a little bit about herself and what she does on a daily basis. And then we'll start with the PowerPoint and kind of go through some handouts.
Yep. So I am Amy Pravatsky, and as Sheyna said, I handle most of the small group, well, all of the small group and mid-size groups as far as new sales, renewals, customer service. I really enjoy that one-on-one approach with our clients. I believe I'm on year 12 here. So it's been a really great relationship between Sheyna and I, and obviously with our clients as well. And I perform all of the day-to-day customer service, so that employer groups are able to have kind of that one point of contact for all of their benefits, and employees to be able to assist them in any of their questions and needs as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start our PowerPoint here. And I'm going to share the screen here with you.
Okay. All right. So one of the top discussions here for 2022, primarily driven honestly by the COVID pandemic, has been the conversation both in the HR space as well as within the employee benefit structure for employer groups, small employer groups trying to compete with the big employer groups who have now been, of course, mandated to provide a certain level of coverage by the Affordable Care Act. Is how do we attract and retain our employees, right? So when we think about hiring employees, there's this intangible cost of employees not staying with us. So Amy had mentioned to me, or had mentioned to you that, she's been with me for 12 years. So what is that price that I would put on Amy being able to have those relationships with my clients and be able to provide that level of customer service? Amy's irreplaceable. There's really no monetary amount that I could provide to, make sure that I keep Amy, right? So what do we do in these situations? The intangible cost of losing employees, not just key employees, but everyday employees, right? We have a cost of training them. We have a cost of making sure that they meet our mission and culture, and and then to lose them over a couple bucks an hour, or maybe heaven forbid not having a benefits package in play because it's been so ever daunting, is really unnecessary. And so that's what we really hope to help from the business perspective. My understanding is on this call is we also have some students, and so I work quite a bit with the Emerging Leaders Academy at the University of Mary, helping them to understand when they go into the workforce, what exactly should they be looking at when they are applying for jobs. And back when I graduated the University of North Dakota, and I'm not going to say the year because it'll let you know of my age, but a long time ago, it was what was the price per hour, right? How much money was I going to make? How am I going to pay off these student loans? And I really didn't put much thought into employee benefits. In fact, that term had never really been, even discussed with me. I was still on my parents' health insurance plan, and then went to the University of North Dakota's plan and really took no value in what a health insurance or life insurance or dental or vision. I just knew I always had this magic card that works. And, we see that a lot in working with not only our employer groups, but our employees when we educate and do open enrollment. And so we really have a passion for making sure that, the employees that work for our employer groups understand the great sacrifice that these employers are making and the cost involved, as well as how important, and then how to use their benefits. There's been a great stress on wellness initiatives, those prevent things prior to the catastrophic things, because ultimately that will help bend the trend in cost. So I would definitely say times are different, as the first slide alludes to. Salary may not be the deciding factor for the job seeker anymore. Now more than ever, small businesses definitely have the ability to compete with the big company. When we're looking at like in Bismarck, we have the state of North Dakota, obviously a very large employer group for, statewide. We have MDU Resources, we have Basin Electric, we have a lot of, employer groups with thousands upon thousands of employees. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're a small business and you're looking to compete with them, you're definitely going to want to work with a team of professionals that understand what benefit packages are in that market that you're looking to compete with. And so we do a lot of market analysis for our clients. We have both state and nationwide data that we draw from to help our employer groups determine what type of benefit package best suits that industry, so they can be equitably competitive in attracting and retaining the very best talent, and ultimately hoping to keep them for 12 years, right? And I thought this interesting fact: 92% of employees surveyed by the Society of Human Resource Management, SHRM, said benefits were vital to their overall satisfaction at work. So, we saw a lot of this in Western North Dakota, where people were really ramping up the salaries, but hadn't caught up on the benefits. And, I have noticed within our block of business, it is definitely the employer groups that we're smart about having a structure of a health, dental, vision, life insurance plan, and then ultimately a 401k and those other types of benefits that have attracted, retained the employee for the long haul, and have definitely saved that intangible money in the sense of not having the turnover that a lot of our other companies that we're seeing out there having during this great resignation of 2023. So where to start, right? So, we're talking about different types of affordability of benefit plans. I mentioned a little bit about retirement plans. There's other things that aren't an insurance platform, such as flexible work schedules, personalized well-being resources. Those types of things all come into play when you're thinking about your policies and where to begin as far as starting your employee benefits platform. Where to start? Definitely find an expert. That is ever more easier to do in North Dakota. We were essentially one of the first employee benefits brokerage firms in the state. So we didn't really have a lot. There have been a few more independent agencies and smaller organizations and larger organizations coming into the state, obviously in the past 10 years. But a broker, an agent, a consultant, someone that is specializing in employee benefits. When you're looking to interview for the people out on our call who are currently own a small business, when you're looking to interview one of those entities, make sure they understand the full encompassing component of the compliance and aren't just there to sell you a policy. You're essentially going to need to set up your Section 125 plan, for example, which is going to be in tandem typically with your accounting group. It explains what benefits are going to be offered. It talks about which pre-tax deductions are going to be allowable for your employees. It kind of goes into those fine details. You're going to also want to determine your goals for offering benefits. Once again, during this great resignation, we're hearing a lot of what do we need to not only attract our talent, but what do we need to do to keep them? I don't want to spend this inordinate amount of money training people to learn the fracking industry or operate a backhoe, or someone who knows all 100 plus of my clients just to have them go across the street for $2 more. So determine what the goals are for offering the benefits. And that's really going to be a purposeful thought conversation that you're going to want to have with that broker or agent as to what types of people you're looking to hire and what kind of data-driven market analysis can that broker, agent, or consultant do for you to help make a smart decision. Make sure your money's working smarter for you, not harder. And then ultimately, this always comes up: what's my budget? What's my budget? What's my budget? Establish that budget for what you think your employer contributions, what you think you're going to be able to afford. Also put into consideration, and obviously I don't give tax advice, but work with your accountant, because a majority of the employer contributions are a legitimate business expense. And so it can ultimately save on many of the areas of your taxation as a business, both for you and your employee. So there's also, once again, back to your Section 125 plan, the whole purpose is so that there's pre-tax dollars being utilized for qualified benefits. So essentially it saves you on the tax side, and it also saves your employees on the tax side. What to look for in that broker partner? We get this question a lot when we do different HR presentations. You know, they're like, what makes you different than XYZ company? Or what makes you different than a Hayes company, a Brown and Brown out of Minneapolis, Deloitte, Aon, what have you? You're going to primarily want to look for someone who has experience working and negotiating with multiple carriers and partners. So in the state of North Dakota, while we have a lot of more people coming to our state claiming to be long-term broker partners, they really have not worked with the carriers in North Dakota for very long, because we really haven't had a active capitalistic environment for very long. I was lucky enough to work for Blue Cross Blue Shield and had the underwriting formularies as part of my training. And when I left to go on my own, I also negotiated with the other carriers that I wanted to have that opportunity. So that's one example that in working with a large employer group, working with data, we have a little bit greater leverage than even some of our national carriers, because national competitors, because we actually have a greater understanding of how those formularies are constructed. We also have in-house actuaries and underwriters that assist in providing those autonomous comparisons. So we're not codependent on just what the insurance carrier gives us, right? In the small group market, because of the Affordable Care Act, rates are structured, they're non-negotiable. And when we talk about what's a large employer and what's a small employer, we really are talking about, do you have greater than 50 applicable employees? And so when we do the look back, and we do help our employer groups do this, it may not just be 50 full-time employees. You may have 20 full-time employees, but have enough hours with either seasonal or part-time. And when we help you with our calculators determine if you're an applicable large employer group, that will be the determining factor as to if you will be on the small group fixed rates structure, or if you will be with the large group negotiating component of what we do. In the small group space, I'd also like to mention that there is no additional cost for you to work with a broker. You know, a lot of the sales pitches of the carrier will be, well, work direct with us. And I can tell you, in working directly for a carrier, that you're only allowed to present a one dynamic side of a big picture. Mm-hmm. So when I worked for Blue Cross, all I could offer, all I was trained in was in Blue Cross Blue Shield products, right? So in working with a broker with no additional cost embedded into your rates, you essentially have the options to take a look at Blue Cross Blue Shield. You have a chance to look at United Healthcare Medica. You also have a chance to look at all the carriers, as well as a good broker partner is also going to provide your summary plan description wrap documents as required by the Department of Labor and ERISA, and a few extra assisting components in the HR space. Providing human resources and enrollment support is another large component of our job, both in the small and large group capacity. So for those students out there who are looking into the human resources space, whether you're going to be an HR coordinator, an HR director, a VP of a university, you're going to want to look at partnering with a broker that you have an active bi-directional relationship with, someone who is answering the phone when you call, someone who helps you when you have that employee that has that emergency. So in interviewing, I can tell you when I interviewed broker dealers at the University of Mary, I interviewed 6 different broker dealers and narrowed it down in scope based on what we were looking for. It can be time consuming, it can be tedious, but ultimately it's worth your time in making sure that you have that active ongoing relationship. A good broker dealer will also be assisting you with any compliance, making sure that every year as those changes come into play, and they are ever changing, anything dealing with the government is ever changing. Ensuring, if you are a large employer group, the ACA compliance. Of course, we have Department of Labor that gets involved, ERISA, EBSA, COBRA, and OSHA. And so we do here at Stroh and Associates provide not only training for employees and staff in all of the compliance components, but we also ensure that you're compliant as it pertains to putting your employee benefit package into play and disseminating the proper information to your employees at the required times. With COVID, technology-based platforms have become ever more popular. Ironically, we had put in play a technology-based platform and it was kind of poo-pooed. It was interesting. A lot of people still wanted us to come out and do the face-to-face on-site renewals and face-to-face employee engagement sessions, which we are still more than happy to do. We love hands-on, not taking away from that. However, with COVID, our employee-facing web portal that is accessible through smartphones, laptops, what have you, essentially allows employees to have access to their information and data 24/7. We record videos such as this for open enrollment so that those employees have the opportunity to share with their spouses, their children maybe in college, what have you, that there is the information out there. You have the app, you can access it. Any type of changes basically can be made from your phone and it notifies your HR manager. So whether you're a student in a small business or an employee, those types of things as we move forward into the employer benefit space, I think are going to be ever more commonplace. So typical benefit offerings and budget. This is definitely more directed to our employer groups maybe looking to add employee benefits, but I think it's also good, important information for those students, maybe looking at what type of potential jobs are out there. I have several people that have come to me and emailed me and said, hey, Sheyna, I was offered this job and this is paying this amount with no benefits, but this is paying quite a bit less with a full benefits package. Can you help me understand really where we're at from a bottom line? And that's a good question. Health insurance is ever more expensive. Typically employers are going to are required to at a minimum share in the cost of 50-50 on the employee only side. An average employee cost right now in North Dakota, or I'm getting tongue tied, in the US national average is about $500. However, that does vary. In the small group market with the fixed rates, unless your broker creates composite rates, meaning where every individual employee is paying the same, every employee plus child is paying the same, families are paying the same, those are called composite rates. Typically, the small group market is based on age. And so you will see a variance in how that employer decides to set that up. But the unfortunate part with that is obviously we all get older. And when we get older, unfortunately, those rate structures go up exponentially. Health insurance is very expensive. I can attest. I'm an independent business owner. I pay for myself and my family, and it's very expensive. It's a couple $1,000s a month, and so I'm definitely empathetic to the employer group in what it's costing them. but also from those employee components is a very valuable benefit and not to be taken lightly when looking at different job opportunities. In addition to health insurance, we typically see a dental insurance put into play in a standard benefit package. Usually the monthly cost, covered by the employee is around that $25 to $40. Vision insurance is a lot less expensive. So, sometimes we'll see an entry level employer group say, well, what if I just want to offer dental, vision, and maybe a life policy just to get started? Because that's really inexpensive. It's definitely a starting point, but I can tell you the number one question your candidate sitting across the table from you will ask if they are not still on their parents' plan is, are you covering health insurance? So once again, that has to do with that conversation of who are you looking to attract and how important is it to you to retain them? While you may be able to get those young college students who are still on their parents' plans to take a position without health insurance, once you get to that age, 26 and older, people are starting to not only, look at having to pay for health insurance on their own, but typically there's family members involved as well, which causes additional cost. Life insurance and disability, some employers pay for a fixed benefit. I would say a $50,000, $100,000 life insurance policy is very standard and typically very inexpensive. But ultimately the bottom line cost to that organization does vary based on the age as well as the occupation. So obviously it's a lot less expensive to cover someone who sits at a desk all day versus someone who's working out in the oil fields in a more dangerous capacity. Additional benefit offerings and things to think about as far as a budget. So once again, this is going to be good information for both employer groups out there looking to maybe add benefits, as well as students looking at jobs as far as the value of that opportunity. So an FSA, a flexible spending account, or a health reimbursement account, or a health savings account are all strategies of ways to basically set aside dollars to be utilized for medical expenses. And so either employer or employee can contribute, and they're subject to different annual limits. A very common contribution that we see, especially like if an employer group says, yes, I want to offer a high deductible health plan to save on my premium. I think in general, if with some good education, my employees will really value the opportunity to have a health savings account. Typically what we're seeing a lot of employers do is then, add an additional $500 or what have you here and there to contribute to the health savings account, which is nice. I mean, ultimately gives you that opportunity. I'm definitely a proponent of a high deductible health plan. There is no other health insurance product on the market where you essentially are incentivized to control your own costs, right? It empowers you to take a look at what you're spending, but it typically also gives you a very good protection in the format of an out-of-pocket maximum to ensure that no one's going bankrupt. I like high deductible health plans specifically because you can continually bump up and save on premium. So for example, when I first got my high deductible health plan, mine was probably about $2,100 back in the day for a deductible, and I contributed to my health savings account. Well, eventually I had $2,100 in my health savings account. Well, what's a $2,100 deductible with $2,100 in the bank? It's a $0 deductible, right? So then I waited until I had about $3,000 in my health savings account, and I was able to change my plan to a $3,000 high deductible. And so I was always able to keep my plan at pretty much a $0 deductible if something was going to happen. Eventually, I got married and had kids, and they needed those dollars for this little thing called orthodontia. So, I look at it this way. There wasn't going to be an insurance plan that gave me money back to buy my children orthos, braces. So I really did kind of come out ahead in that situation. I also felt that I had really good protection from my out-of-pocket maximum, where it was still affordable enough where if something did catastrophically happen, I always had that money in my health savings account kind of to the rescue. Retirement planning, of course, 401ks, 403bs. Typically, employers contribute a dollar amount or percentage kind of based on your rate and earnings. We're seeing ever more pet insurance requests. So yes, we can also help people with pet insurance if that's what they're looking for. And identity theft protection has also been something that employers are kind of getting into as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take over. We're going to talk a little bit about the small group market and what goes into the request for proposal in order to get those rates for either an existing group or a new business. Basically, we would gather all of the employer information. The options that we have with different carriers are sometimes based on where the business is headquartered. We also look at plan anniversaries and current information if they have a plan in place. We gather all of their total employee count, part-time, seasonal, as Sheyna was kind of mentioning, to just determine group size and make sure that we're presenting the appropriate plans for that business. We gather all of the census data. So we need date of birth and zip code for accurate rating on the small group market. Those are simply based on age and zip code. And then that would include the employee and any spouses or dependents. Each person does have their own age banded rates on those. And then we'd also collect all of the waivers of anybody who that is eligible but waiving the benefits. That's really important for the employer to actually have all of that information on file. We also house that here as well, just in case anybody was ever audited and they would need to see that the employees were all presented with the benefit options. We'll do a cost comparison for those employers that currently have benefits in place. So we make our recommendations and we outline all of the differences from the current plan to the new plan. There's really never a true apples to apples comparison. So we identify those pluses and minuses and ultimately, try to stay in line with what that employer group's preferences are on the plans. So small group quotes, the turnaround time we have is around 3 to 5 business days. Typically, I would say during fourth quarter that gets stretched out maybe a little bit longer to more 7 to 10 business days, just to be realistic with the workload. Large group quotes, we like to start those 90 days prior to the group's effective date so that we have plenty of time for carrier negotiations. And then if there were a possible move, we'd like to try to streamline that process and make it as smooth as possible with getting everybody transitioned over to a new carrier. The minimum employer contribution is 50% of the employee only cost. Sheyna had already kind of mentioned that. We can allow the employees to get, the employer to pay towards the spouse and dependents if they like. And we do have some employer groups that do that. And they also are willing to sometimes pay more than that 50% of the employee cost, just really depending on the budget. And those rates, again, the composite rates are actually, they're the age banded rates divided out by how many people you have enrolling in each plan. So single plus children, family, they take all of those age banded rates and then just divide them out. So you get that one composite rate. Oops, I guess I didn't have very much there. I'm sorry.
All right. So getting value for your investment is, definitely a question that, or a discussion we have with our newer employer groups looking to, implement benefits. It's also a conversation we have ongoing with our current clients every year is, you know, do you feel like you're getting your value from this investment? Once again, that comes back to the attraction and retention of those valuable employees. I can tell you, I can't think of a single employer that we work with that doesn't want to retain their best employees, right? That's their ultimate goal. Hire first, hire one time and keep them for a long time. It doesn't usually happen that way, but we definitely aim to assist them in that. And so how do we do that? You know, we want to make sure that we include benefits offered into the advertisement, right? When we're advertising for that position, we want to make sure we're kind of bragging about how great of an offer that we have. We want to make sure that, you know, we have married up that benefit platform in tandem with what else is being, you know, advertised in that same space. So benefits being offered out in Western North Dakota during the oil boom, for example, were very different than benefits offered in our hotel industry in Wisconsin. So, you know, we want to make sure we understand the market. We want to make sure you're partnered with someone who understands the industry and has access to that data. So we really rely heavily on data-driven discussions with our employer groups to make sure that they're competitive. Total compensation statements is another thing that we provide, regardless of size of employer group. We will essentially partner with, you know, the 401k person will partner with whomever if there's other benefits in play from other locations, and integrate that obviously with the benefits that we're assisting with, to show that employee that what does this really break down to for them. And we've really found that to be very successful. You know, people tend to forget about the cost of benefits, and people tend to really get a little bit of heartburn, especially when they hear of record level inflation, right? And they see they only get a 4% cost of living adjustment. So how do we turn that around? How do we make those employees feel valuable and verify for them that this employer is doing their very best? One of the things I've found is the total compensation statements, because every year health insurance is going up, typically 7 to 15%, sometimes more. And, you know, with that being said, that really is a huge impact, right? So someone might be kind of grumbling in the break room that they just got 4% and gas prices this and my mortgage rate's that, and you know everyone's the poor little guy, and it's very, very justified. However, I think in many cases, if they really realized how much their employer is spending on their employee benefits, I think their tone would soften a little bit. And so we really like, once again, that data-driven information, those, you know, those components every year for open enrollment, for someone to say, hey, this is what I'm actually getting paid at this institution, is very helpful. Hold annual open enrollment employee meetings. So once again, we travel quite a bit. We do on-site. It has become ever more popular to do these either Zoom calls or recorded employee meetings, so that people can watch them at their leisure and rewatch them with the people that are also impacted at home. But definitely keeping that bidirectional engagement with your employees is important. People tend to forget, once again, if they're not reminded, you know, how to use their benefits, what values it has. Testimonials, those types of things. Utilize technology to keep your employees engaged and educated. Once again, I really believe in working smarter, not harder. And it doesn't take away from, I would have loved to met you all in person. However, this is a great way. I mean, technology is a great way because it can be done, it can be utilized and accessed on the employees' leisure. So if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they can't sleep and they're kind of worried about their wife who's going in for having a baby, they can pull up their benefits and say, oh my gosh, that's right, we've met our out-of-pocket maximum, she's going in, we've got everything covered. I think it really does help with the stress level, especially when you are faced with either an emergency or an exciting situation like having a baby. So I love technology. I love helping employees stay engaged and educated. So Analyze those benefits annually, and that was more directed to our employer groups, just to make sure that their money is being well spent. That's what our job is to do, is to help employer groups. We want to help them, of course, save money, but we also want to make sure that the money that they're spending is really, speaking to their employees, and their employees are understanding that it is an investment and they're getting the biggest bang for their buck. If not, we're going to make changes. We're going to have conversations about, and once again, data driven. You'll keep hearing me say that over again. I am a data geek. How are your employees using their benefits? Because there's no sense in spending money and throwing it at the wall if it's not sticking. If people aren't using those benefits, if there isn't a majority, maybe those dollars are better spent in other directions. Work with a team that is a true partner in your company's success. And that goes for, whether you are an HR team lead, in charge of the benefits, whether you are that employer owner, or whether, you're just a part of maybe a team of people at a larger institution looking to shop up for your broker. Try to find someone that genuinely is going to be that true partner, not only to the leadership, but all the way down to the employee level. Because when there is that emergency, or there is that, rare high claimant case, you're going to want a team that's going to advocate and has the experience and the underwriting knowledge and the data and the resources to really, shine for you and to work hard for you. So that pretty much summarizes our pre-populated presentation. We always like to leave enough room for questions and answers. I know that they had given us a list of emails of people who were going to be on the call today. And so we will make sure to follow up on some handouts. We have one handout that I think if you are a small employer, or if you are maybe looking to go to work for a small employer in the HR space, it's basically an employee benefits compliance checklist for all small employer groups. So that's kind of my little gift to you today. It's something that we visit very regularly with our small employer groups because the rules and the laws are ever changing. And it will basically go through, what laws and regulations that you hear in the industry all the time are applicable to what size group, and it gives you a nice little navigation tool of where we're at for 2022 going into 2023. We'll also be sending out a handout that talks about, how do you go about shopping for a agent, consultant, or broker? And so we always tell people, feel free to use this as a baseline. We have a handout that says, how do we measure up? And it talks about kind of all of our experience, technology, strategic planning, legislative briefs, our client portal, data analysis, all those things. But it doesn't mean that we are the only broker in town. And if you have a relationship maybe with someone at church who says, hey, I work for XYZ company, we do the same thing, it at least gives you a baseline to say, okay, well, this is kind of what we're looking for. I attended this presentation. I really like some of these things. And if you do the same thing, then, let's have a talk. So I just always want to make sure that people are educated. It's very easy to get a health insurance license, health life license. So there's a lot of people who sell it, but they don't specialize in it. And I think in this very complex arena of compliance and benefits, if you yourself are not a benefit expert, it definitely pays exponentially to work with someone who that's all they do in and out, because we're always getting notifications that, there has been a small change, a small tweak to this, that, and we are kind of the ones that are, delivering that message to our employer groups, making sure they stay on top of things. So I think unless you have anything, Amy, I'll just open up to questions. Does that sound good?
I was just going to add a couple of things
Sure.
for our business owners that are on here. we get calls all the time with people who are maybe just starting up a company and they haven't quite, completed all their hiring, but they're contemplating offering benefits. And in those instances, we can typically provide kind of a rate estimate. We have, the full age banded rates, so you can see, if I hire this age demographic or this age demographic, this is what I'd be looking at, just to give you a little bit of an idea on what that potential cost could be. So we're more than happy to do those. And if you do currently have benefits and you're with a specific carrier, there's a lot of ins and outs with the carriers that we work with around here where, a lot of the employers we talk to, they don't realize that they could offer more than one plan. And there's specifics when it comes to that. It's based on size, how many people you have and how many people are potentially enrolling into a plan. But some of the carriers don't have those other requirements. You can actually offer more plans and it doesn't matter who enrolls into them. So we know kind of all those ins and outs. So if you are interested and maybe there's some of those things, that you weren't aware of, feel free to give a call or send an email. We're more than happy to provide that information for you.
Good point.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think we can do questions. It looks like we have maybe a chat here. Okay, offering long-term care insurance common.
Honestly, we do have a couple clients that offer either short-term or long-term insurance and the group capacity, but it is not as common play as like a health, dental, vision, life. I'd say health, dental, vision, life are our top 5 products, would you say?
Yeah, and disability.
In a disability. But long-term care insurance is not quite as common. I read that wrong initially. I apologize. Thought it said long-term disability, but yeah, yes, long-term care policy is probably we do offer it, but we don't see it very often.
I'm just going to put our contact information back up here for you so you have access to that as well. And
any other questions right now? So we either did a really good job or everyone's sleeping. Well, if you guys do have any questions after we hang up, or you have any like personal questions, don't hesitate. Just give us a call. Thank you. We are happy to help. If it's not even within our space, we to be forthcoming, we do not do retirement planning. We partner with different 401k partners, both locally and nationally. So even if it's something that's not in our space, we have great relationships with everyone. We get referrals from banks. We get referrals from financial advisors. We get referrals from PNC companies. And it's kind of why we haven't expanded to this all encompassing, because we really appreciate the relationships we have with our local businesses. So let's see, does offering a gym membership reimbursement reduce the cost of healthcare insurance? Oh, that's a good question.
So there's a lot of the plans that actually offer a reimbursement on the gym membership. So that's something, maybe your current plan even has, but a lot of the carriers do offer that without a cost, coinciding with actual healthcare premiums.
So that is the user answer. I'm going to look towards like the analytical side. That's why we partner so well. So let's say, for example, you were asking me, does offering a gym membership actually help reduce cost? There have been studies that technically offering a gym membership does not reduce cost, because once again, the target audience that typically works out 12 times a month was already working out before the gym membership was offered. So it is a definite strong marketing tactic to have health insurance carriers look like they care about your health. But the facts are health insurance carriers make a percentage of claims. So health insurance carriers really aren't the touchy-feely. They essentially want high claims. More claims means more money, right? So we are not, and that's what makes us kind of different. We don't work for a carrier. So we work for the employer group. We help analyze the data through the lens of what's in the best interest of the employer group versus maybe what's in the best interest of the carrier. So that's really, we're a little bit of the vigilante coupon clippers of especially in the health insurance market. So either way, you got the question answered on both ends of the spectrum. Anything else? Well, thanks so much, everybody, for attending our presentation, and the people that asked questions, thank you so much. And once again, anyone has a question or you want some help or some free advice, both of our contact information is there. We are, oh, another question came in. Are you limited to the states you can work with? So we are licensed and appointed to just about any state. So you are limited. You have to have an active licensure and then be appointed in that state. But we pretty much service anyone who has a need. That's not usually an issue as far as the employee benefit component. You know, when you in where you the rules and regulations from the state component, as well as where insurance is purchased, essentially is based on where the company is headquartered. Yeah. So for example, like we have a client here in Bismarck that is so large, they operate in all states, right? So, but because they're headquartered in Bismarck, that is a North Dakota product. Now, on the flip side of that, if we have a client in, let's say, Minnesota or South Dakota, that's where they're headquartered. They may have employees here in North Dakota, but the product, because it's a group product, is based on, you know, where they're headquartered, Minnesota or South Dakota. So I hope that answers your question. If not, I can do a follow-up too. Any other questions? Well, back to my what I was saying, we've got our emails there, we got our phone numbers, feel free to give us a call. We're happy to help. And if we didn't answer something that you were looking for specifically, let us know. We have tons of material, tons of data, and we love to share it. So look forward to any questions, maybe potentially meeting someone in person. Thank you so much for your time.